Good morning, Mother Oafers. It's your favorite fat man, Dave Bernard. It is March 25th. Getting a little bit of an early start here today. For those of you that are new to the channel, welcome. So here's a little bit of the backstory. On January 3rd of this year, I was told that I was basically too fat to have the surgery that I needed. And the surgery I needed was an umbilical hernia operation. And so I decided to jump on and start riding to lose weight. And I've given myself until January 2020 to get down to 244 pounds. Starting off here at 313 pounds in January. It's been a struggle for the first couple of months here. I've been as low as 301, and I've been as high as 301 pounds, and I've been as high as 324 pounds in the last 2 months as I've fought through this. Those of you that have decided to jump on and ride with me, you already know most of the story. Of course, I always have to get the all of the technical stuff out of the way here first thing in the morning. Some of the rides we've been having some discussions on different topics. When I pre-plan them, most of the rides I just ramble on about whatever's happening or different topics. Last Friday, I rode on my personal Facebook page for the first time. We're back on Oaf Life now, on the Oaf Life channel today. And I only rode because I had shared a weight loss. I called it a failure because I had set a 1 week goal to lose 10 pounds the Wednesday before to last Wednesday, and I failed to do so. And using that word failure just triggered the hell out of people. And so I felt like I owed it to those that were bothered by the word to at least have a little bit of a discussion so that they at least knew that that word was not negative to me. It was a motivator. I set a goal, I didn't meet it, and what the hell was I going to do about it? I wasn't going to quit because my bigger goal is bigger than 1 week's result. I did lose over 8 pounds in the week, so it wasn't a failure as far as not having progress at all. I just didn't meet the goal, and it wasn't a stretch goal. It wasn't something that I felt like I couldn't accomplish or I couldn't meet. It was something that I felt at my weight and the amount of fat that I was carrying that was very, very doable as long as I committed to it, and I didn't. I didn't commit to it. I cheated. I cheated on what I ate. I cheated on not exercising enough, kind of leaving it up to the last couple of days, you know. Hey, good morning, bud. You know, so it is what it is, right? But people get hung up on what they believe is negative talk, and it's not, man. Depends on the person. You know, I grew up as an athlete, and I don't know if that's part of why I think differently. But I set a goal. I failed at the goal, and it was, good morning, bud. And now it's just time to get back on and get more serious. Of course, I say that, and I effed it up again this weekend a little bit. My daughters wanted to hit the local Chinese buffet, and I know it's not a place I should go, and so instead of 1 plate, I had 2. So we had a bit of a cheat weekend, I called it. However, we got out, the girls and I did a nice hike. Saturday, it was their first hike of the year. We have a route that we go on that's called David's Lasso. If you followed me back in earlier this month, you know that I had a son that passed away, and so that route is in remembrance of him. And some people wanted to, didn't understand, well, what's the lasso part of it? Well, one of the first time I had done that route on my ride, it gives you a map of it, and it looked like this little, lasso that a little cowboy would have. And I just kind of, for whatever reason, it just made me think of what would he be today, and I can imagine him in a little cowboy outfit, and you know what I mean. And so we've named that route David's Lasso, and of course my daughters love going on that route because of that. And we have several stops we make, and they know where they are, and that gives them the ability to endure the hike, because it's not something that's a ton of fun for them. But we have one of the stops that's called, we call it picture frame. It's where this vine has grown straight up and then made this frame around another tree, and then continued to go up to a taller part of the tree. And so we always try to stop there and they get a picture. This year I let them do their own videography and photography. And we get down to another little spot that's got a little bit of a stream, and they climb around there. And so we take different breaks. We do have a longer route that we go on, and that's what we're gonna be doing next time. And so this next, the other route that we go on has a tree that we basically call Mama, because it looks like it's got some giant, breastises. And so they always thought that was fun. They actually pointed it out years ago. And so they always have fun with that. We just have fun. I'm fortunate that I live, I have 12 acres of my own, but I live attached to about 2,000 acres of state game area here in Michigan. And we have about 7 miles of walkable trails right outside the door. And so we're fortunate that we can just go whenever we want. Also means we have no excuse not to go. So we hit that Saturday before we did the hike, or before we went and ate at the buffet, I'm sorry. And then as we continued down some other poor choices, after my daughter's horseback riding lessons yesterday, went ahead and hit David's Lasso again, but I did that one by myself and tried to hit it at a harder pace, just to try to make up. And of course then I made a little post out on Instagram and Facebook, which was, they say you can't outwork a bad diet. Well, you sure, I can't remember how I said it, but you can't outwork a bad diet is what they say, but you sure can try, and blah blah blah. So point of that is that I think a lot of people use some of these sayings as an excuse. Say, well, I effed up, I can't outwork a bad diet, so I guess I'm just gonna sit on the couch and eat some more bonbons. And that's bullshit. I shouldn't cheat, I shouldn't have these weak moments, but the only way to fight it when I do have it is to try to work out more. And so for me to get out there and ride, or get on the trail and hike, or even rumble down the trail, which rumbling also means running, but when I run, you can it's a little much. Again, remember, I am right around that 300-pound mark. So I'm not a Sasquatch. I am just your favorite 47-year-old fat man rumbling down the trail. So anyway, so we knocked that out last night. Felt like I at least did something. You know, and that was only, it's a 3-mile deal. You know, right now I'm still mostly hiking. It's not bad. You're right. It's not bad to have cheat days, you know, especially when you're changing your lifestyle. But I have such an extreme goal that I have to be hard on myself about it. Now, for those of you that are new, remember, I have experience, you know. Drinking, limited desserts, focused on it's maybe it's possible, man. I mean, you know what I can tell you, and this is just from experience of training hundreds of people back in 2012, 13, and 14. You just stick to it, man. It breaks eventually. Try not to cheat as much. That's kind of my objective. I guess before I go on this little tangent, for those of you that didn't notice, that's me back in 2012. And so I know what I'm doing. Not to mention I have a degree in it. And so I've been through this a lot. Yeah, you know what? And I get discouraged often too, and I get mad at myself, especially when I think I've tried and tried and tried. But here's what happened in 2012 and 13 and 14 when I was training other people. There's something about that 90-day mark that when you just keep sticking it out and keep fighting and fighting and fighting to eat better, eat better, eat better, all of a sudden it seems like it kicks in. And it seemed like it was right around 70 days to 80 days, depending on the person, that all of a sudden it just happened. I can also tell you that back in the day when I was in the best shape of my life, which was in my early 20s, playing at the university and taking a shot at a professional career, there were certain supplements that I took. One I remember specifically that taught me the greatest lesson, and we studied this at the university, but I'd never experienced it myself. But I started taking a supplement called HMB, and it was one of those supplements that the science basically told you that it took a few months before your body would actually react, so you had to keep taking it. Well, it wasn't cheap. I'm a university student, or freshly into my career at that time, and so every dollar spent was a big deal. Not that it isn't today, but more so, especially when I was a university student. And so spending that money and not seeing results instantly was tough. But man, I remember when it hit, and it was probably around 3 months in, at least 2, and all of a sudden, between 1 week to the next, I mean, and I'm just gonna talk like the basic, like bench press, squats, things like that, but man, it just kicked in. Like, you know, I remember doing my final bench set at the weight I was at, and I'm just repping out what was tough to do at 2 or 3 reps. All of a sudden that particular day, I'm crushing like 6 or 7 and feeling good. And then I remember bumping it up, you know, a little bit. And that was when that project actually started to work for me. And, you know, there's a lot of supplements out there that work sooner. But the point of that is that our bodies don't change overnight with everything we do. Yes, there are certain things we can do that will make it to where, hey, good morning. Yes, I am going for an hour, Tina. Sorry, I just saw that. But, you know, the other thing is like for me, I'm 47 years old. My body seems to take longer to react to a lot of stuff. And so, I hate to say I gave myself a bit of an excuse because I did. One of the differences between 2012 and now is that I was blind to what could happen or would happen. I had zero expectation, nor did I have any idea of how hard or easy it could be to transform. None of those things were thoughts in my head. All I was doing was just going, following the plan. I set a plan. So I have this, and by the way, I have this small book that I wrote back then, and it's currently unpublished. It was published on a couple websites, but since I've taken them down. But it's called The Plan, and you've heard of that terminology before, but for me, The Plan, one of the reasons I took it down is because this other guy tried to steal it, and I went after him for it. But it's a very simple way of thinking that you set a goal, and your goal's got to be deep-rooted as part of the trick. You've got to figure out why you want that goal. It can't be, you know, I kind of want it. I kind of want to hit this thing. It's got to be a deep-rooted goal, and then you got to dig super deep to figure out why. And you may even change the goal once you figure out why you want it. And you may need somebody else to help you dig deep into figuring out why you want that goal. But nevertheless, you set a goal, and then you make a plan. You follow the plan. And then there's kind of like this 3.5, which is you modify the plan, but you got to give yourself a little time with it. Or you adjust, modify a plan or adjust, and then you're going to achieve the goal. Now, when I say modify the plan, I try to be careful with that with most people because they will jump too fast to changing what they're doing. You have to give it time. As we've already discussed, sometimes 90 days is the right time, but I would say no less than 30 days of anything new that you're trying. Just make the plan and follow it. Stick it out and make sure that what you're doing actually works for you. You know, but there can, and modify things as you go. I am of the idea that when you're trying to gain weight or lose weight, that you should weigh yourself often. You know, there's a lot of people say you shouldn't weigh yourself that often. I say you should weigh yourself at least once a day while you're going through things, because it's hard to remember, unless you're journaling, which I don't believe in. It's hard to remember, let's say you're only weighing in once a week. It's hard to remember exactly what you did day to day that may have thwarted your success. And so I believe that weighing yourself at least once a day isn't a bad thing. Matter of fact, I used to weigh myself twice a day. Now, when I do fall into the camp of don't weigh yourself, sometimes you don't have to. If you know you cheated and you know the results aren't going to be very good, maybe you don't need to weigh yourself. But if you're truly going after it and trying to fight the fight, and you just wanted to make sure that you were mentally taking notes of things that you had done and mistakes you may have made, then weigh yourself twice a day is not bad. It's not a bad thing. But even myself, when I know I've cheated, I don't need to weigh myself. And I may not weigh myself for a couple days while I try to fight off the cheat day or cheat meal or cheat weekend. So, but there are some things that you can try that aren't fun, you know, you could try to do some form of a cleanse. Figure out what makes the most sense for you. Most people need to talk to a doctor before they do that, but, you know, try cleansing yourself for a couple of days to get out some of the toxins. And there's 100 different thousand methods of cleansing, so I'm not going to give you one. However, part of a good cleansing system, even if you're still eating food, is to just drink water. And I struggle with that sometimes because it seems like I never truly drink water. I always put other stuff in it. I tend to put lemon in my water often, which isn't bad, but it's not water alone, and so your body reacts differently to that. But try increasing your water, which is not easy. Try to eliminate for a few days any other type of drink, and only drink water, and see what kind of results you can get. Even if you're eating regular food, hopefully whole food, but even if you're eating regular food, the idea of just drinking water, let's say for 3 or 4 days, you know, that could be pretty good. And I would say, unfortunately, there's different rules on that. I mean, there's different thoughts, I should say, from how that goes physiologically in your body as far as coffee goes. But yes, I would say try for 2 or 3 days to not drink anything but just water, and just see how it does for you. Give up coffee for a few days. I know that's like, say, you know, this like evil conversation that I've had with several people, but I'm not saying give up coffee for the long term. I'm just saying give it up for a week. Give everything up for a week. Just drink water and see if it helps. I mean, everybody's different, so you've got to continue to try different things that may or may not work for me, or may or may not work for you. You've got to try them and see if they work for you. So in some respect, they're only suggestions. If you wanted to continue to drink coffee and then drink water, maybe have a cup of coffee in the morning because you just feel like you have to, whatever, man, try it. For you, that might be enough. You know, you're on the edge right there where you're putting out so much effort when you're cycling that your body wants to store. Our bodies are complex, but at the same time, in some respects, they're pretty simple. So when they feel like they're exerting different types of energy, they react, your body will react to it in different ways. And so most aerobic, long distance, non-sprinting, it all depends, Tina. Everybody's different. So you can say it's fine, but it might be what's holding some people back. So my suggestion is give 3 to 5 days a try of just water, and stop, you know, limiting your belief that certain things are okay, because for some people it may not be. Now, I'm fortunate. Well, it's got nothing to do with insulin. It's not an insulin issue. Lost track of what I was saying. Anyways, ramble. Oh, so one of the things about aerobic activity is that when your body is on these long distance 1 hour rides, it gets to a point where it's like, all right, I need to store energy because I don't know when this activity is going to happen again. And so it knows, it kind of thinks it knows what's best for you. And so cycling and running and other aerobic activity is great for your heart, but it's not ideal for fat loss. It's why people prescribe to high intensity or interval training, and that can be a lot of different types of exercises. So Some people equate that to what CrossFit does, which isn't 100% true all the time. Some people equate that to what maybe they do in their little boot camp, which again isn't always the case. Some go to very specific interval training sessions, or they set interval training sessions as far as their, even in a spin class. But the idea behind interval training, and by the way, if you ever played sports in primary school, you'll know or remember when you would do, they call them wind sprints, or whatever the verbiage was where you were training. Well, that was interval training. So high intensity interval training, and everybody's percentages are a little bit different, but high intensity interval training is getting your heart rate up to above 80% max, and then letting it come back down, and then spiking it back up, come back down, spike it back up, come back down. And science has told us that about 8 intervals is ideal. And of course there's different levels. I prescribe to the idea of a 30 second fast as you can, hard as you can, intensity level, and then 90 seconds nice and easy. At my current condition, I would say that 30 seconds or as fast as I can, and maybe closer to 120 seconds of rest. And rest doesn't mean stop, it just means slow, nice and easy. So anybody that's putting in that kind of work should start to see fat loss results. Now there's another piece of this. Let's say you're trying to do both. So let's say that, trying to give a better example than this, but let's say that you're trying to gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. You have to figure out which goal is more important, because that matters of how you yeah, a 10-second sprint isn't terrible, man, as long as your heart rate's cranking to the right spot. I would say that from the science and the research that I had done years ago, that you probably want to increase that in order to trick your body. So 10 seconds probably isn't enough of a spike, but I would, the funny thing is that I used to do that. I actually used to do sprints back in 2012. Before I figured out, a good routine, I was just doing whatever I could. And so just doing, I think I started off at 20-yard sprints. I would walk back, 20-yard sprint. Well, I do about 10 to 20 of those after I was warmed up. And then of course I increased the distance out to about, I think 60 meters was about where I stopped, or maybe not meters, but yards, I'm sorry. So I would run about 60 yards. And you can even do, for somebody that's super, super heavy, and we're talking about, right now we keep talking about people that are a little bit more advanced, but if you're in the obese stance, if you're, barely moving and walking is the struggle, then you can interval train even walking. So even if it was just walking, just go as nice and warm up, and then use the same type of interval. 90 seconds, slow, nice and easy pace, and then 30 seconds as fast as you can. And the beautiful thing about as fast as you can means as fast as you can. Not as fast as the treadmill says, not as fast as your buddy next to you is doing, as fast as you can. And that effort over time will increase. I mean, your performance will increase. It will get better. As fast as you can will be faster. Might even turn to a small jog. What you'll find in most cases when you're doing this type of exercise, so you're only knocking out maybe 20 to 30 minutes of the actual interval. You're warming up first and then cooling down, but the intervals may be only 20 to 30 minutes. What you'll find is that when you get to the last couple of intervals, as fast as you can, it's pretty damn, isn't much, especially when you're first starting out. And so you'll find that you know, the last couple intervals, you might barely be moving, but it's still as fast as you can. And those are lessons that I wish I could have taught people back in 2012 when I first started moving, because I only showed the positive back then. I only showed when I succeeded. I didn't show the struggle. And this time around, that's what I've committed to, is the struggle. Making sure everybody knows that this isn't all, as I like to say, rainbow and butterflies. This is a hard journey for everybody that's going through it. Whether you have a couple pounds to lose, or 60, 70, or 80 pounds to lose like myself, it's a struggle. When you get down to the end of it, when you get down to the end, it just depends on why you want that goal and whether it truly matters or not. There's some things that I learned over time there was so much vanity that ended up being created, and it wasn't the purpose in the beginning. So, for those of you that don't know, well, first of all, for those of you that also don't know, I actually have a degree in exercise sciences with a concentration in physiology and kinesiology. And of course, I've been involved at a high level since I was 12 years old. My family owned a business below a very hardcore gym where the owner was Mr. Michigan. And of course, all the girls that worked for us at the time, and I know this isn't 100%, but they all seemed to be dating the guys upstairs at the gym. And so it didn't take much for me to get up there and start being, pseudo-taught by these giants. And so I've been involved in this industry in one way or another since I was 12 years old. Now, some people would ask why and how the hell did I get so fat? Well, there was about a 16-year period where when I ended my aspirations of a professional career in sports, I took all of that energy and pushed it towards my career. And as I advanced in my career, I ended up going from having a very active position where I was moving to sitting in board meetings almost all day. And if I wasn't in a meeting, I was sitting at a desk monitoring and or creating plans for the business that I was in. And then of course, I ate out of a vending machine half the time. So, long story short, in 2012, I came to realize that I was pre-diabetic and had other health issues, as the blood work showed. So high cholesterol, high everything. And because I have a fear of needles, I figured out that I had a couple choices. And for me, the only choice was to lose weight, to try to at least control this pre-diabetes. And so my fear of needles is what drove me to do anything back in 2012. And then after I succeeded fairly quickly in getting everything under control, then I didn't decide, it just kind of happened, there was this almost this egotistical goal that was stuck in front of me. And so the company's products that I was using had this national weight loss challenge deal. So I was flown down, I entered it. I really didn't know what to expect. One of the leaders of the company flew me down to Miami for a national convention. And I didn't know, I mean, a lot of people were patting me on the back for my transformation, and I didn't know how it all worked. And remember, this was a 90-day challenge, so I thought. And so I'm there in Miami, sitting in the stands, and they start having this conversation about, you know, who's going to win or who's next or whatever. And I'm sitting there waiting to hear my name. And of course, it never happened. And I, you know, leaned over to some of the leaders and I said, okay, so why am I here? They're like, oh, well, we just wanted you to experience this thing and, you know, show you what this company is all about. And I thought, well, what the hell? I mean, and the guy that ended up winning the transformation had this amazing, he's up on stage. Back then they had this guy, Hulk Hogan, this professional wrestler, and he's up on stage meeting his hero, and you know, it was kind of a cool deal. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, great transformation, but still like hugely overweight. And no disrespect, but I'm thinking, man, what, I don't get it. Like, he did that in like, there's no way he lost, I think it was over 200 pounds. I'm like, he didn't lose over 200 pounds in 90 days. There's no weapon way. He'd be in the hospital on life support. Well, it's like, oh, no. He's been doing this for years now, and he's entered this contest several times. And I thought, okay, I guess I don't understand this. As it was said to me, it's a 90-day challenge, but you can just keep going and entering. And I thought, all right, well, now I guess I know what the game is, and now I'm a little pissed off and a little embarrassed, you know, that I didn't understand that. And they had another convention coming up in November of that year. Not a national, kind of more of a regional deal. And I thought, you know what? F this shit. I'm gonna win it. You know, there was money involved, so it wasn't just, and mind you, I had just lost, you know, I was no longer employed, so I just lost my dream job, I think in May, or maybe March of that year. And so, I had nothing better to do, and that money meant something. So I'm like, you know what? I'm committing. I'm gonna do it. I'm going to be the champion. And so I rented out my house. I did whatever I had to do to succeed in that. So I rented out my house. I traded a car for a year's worth of rent over in Port Huron where my girls were. So I was able to be with my girls. I was able to pay for my house because I rented out. I traded an asset over so that I had free rent. All I had to pay was the other bills because, like I said, I traded a year's worth of rent for a car. And I still had a car, by the way. And so I did whatever I had to do, and I went for it. And so for the next 3 months, I think I lost another 30-some pounds, or close to that. And of course, that's where you see the after picture. So yeah, my transformation was amazing and all of that, but I didn't have the same lifestyle as I have today either. You know, all I had to do back then was work out, eat right, watch my kids, you know, and I looked for a job here and there. You know, I pretty much every day I'd wake up and apply for jobs, but other than that, it was working out and eating right and spending time with my girls. That was actually a great year for me. Again, you get the ramblings of the fat man here today, but that was actually a really good year for me because it was my oldest daughter's first year of kindergarten and my youngest daughter's first year of not being with her sister. And so she got to spend a lot of that year, my youngest daughter got to spend a lot of that year with me, which was pretty cool, you know, which was really cool. It was good memories. We got to spend a lot of days together, a lot of time. We did a lot of just goofy things, you know. We'd go to, you know, I remember in the fall we'd go to Halloween stores and try on Halloween outfits, and I mean, it was a good year. Point of all that is, I know a little bit of something. I know what it takes to do it, to get it done. I know that it's a struggle to do it when you have a full-time job. I know it's hard to get that last few pounds off. My lowest weight, which only happened one time, was 229 pounds. Other than that, I stayed, even fighting through it, I stayed at about 231 pounds. I did a lot of measurements back then, so I did fat caliper measurements. I did a lot of tape measurements, you know, for, you know, my waist, you know, my thighs, calves, neck, arms, shoulders, chest. I mean, this time, I'm not doing any of that. I'm weighing myself, and that's pretty much it. I do have a fat belt that I keep around, but I haven't even started down that path yet. So I don't know where I started. I believe it's probably beyond what the belt measure, or what the belt is. And for those of you that aren't sure what the hell I'm talking about, one of these times I'll bring that belt out so you can see it. But basically what I did a couple of years ago, as I've been fighting through all this, is I bought a rawhide tan colored belt, and so that I can actually write on it. And so I'll write the date when I put the belt on. And the idea is that, you know, regardless of my weight, the number one risk for men, or for me, is that fat around your belly, or your spare tires, as they call it, also, you know, so around your back and basically your midsection fat. And so the most important measurement is your waist, not the scale. Well, unfortunately for me, I have to worry about both. So right now the most important goal is the scale. We'll worry about the waist later. But I do know what the measurement for me probably needs to be as far as like a pant size here in the United States, which is different than around the world. But my ideal weight, I would be at about a 36-inch pant size for the waist. And by the way, I say pant size 36-inch because unfortunately those numbers don't match. And I uncovered that truth back in 2013, that the fashion industry in the United States changed the sizes over a 20-year period of time for both men and women. And so a size 36 wasn't the same in, let's say, 1992 as it was in 2012. So that sucked. Because fortunately I had some old clothes that I, you know, had kept around, some of the sports memorabilia of mine. And back in 2012, I remember trying to put it on and going, holy shit, I can't put this on, and I'm the same size pant. Well, made me dig a little further into how that worked. And look it up for yourself. Woo! So anyways, there's a lot to this. I guess I've rambled on quite a bit, but if you're trying, you know, if you're trying to lose weight and you don't have a whole lot to go, I would suggest giving up all drinks of any type for, I'm gonna say 5 days and just drink water. No coffee, no tea, no Kool-Aid, no super juice, just water. Eat your regular diet, your regular meals, if you can, but just do water. I will tell you there's another trick that water provides if you're at all interested or struggling with some of this, which is there is a difference between cold water and room temperature water. If you are trying to thwart your appetite, you can drink room temperature water and it will give your belly a sensation of being full. It is a trick. It does work. And so if you know that you really don't need to eat, like you just have these urges, drink room temperature water and that should help you. Now if you're trying to get hydrated quickly, drink cold water because it will get into your cells faster. It will break your intestinal walls quicker. Just does. Just like if you're trying to, let me throw you another little trick of the trade. If you're trying to, let's say, change a couple things here. Let's say you're trying to use creatine. Creatine is an amazing supplement, probably the #1 supplement that anybody should be using that is training in any way. Doesn't matter what method you're training, just because of what it does. For anybody strength training or power training or sprinting, there are some benefits, side effect benefits to creatine. But if you are using creatine, if you use room temperature grape juice and mix your creatine in it, it will actually get into your cells quicker. That was proven back in the early 90s and never disproven since. So, another little trick. However, a lot of the creatine that you get now, especially if it's from Germany, seems to be a pure form. Doesn't need that trick to get into your body. However, it still works. There's a purity issue sometimes with supplements that you take, and so you have to do a little research. The general rule for at least the last 5 years when it comes to creatine is then if it comes from Germany, it's probably fairly pure. I know that's a dangerous assumption because supplement industry is not very well regulated, and therefore, I hate to say it, but some of them lie. Oh my God, man. This guy's so white his legs are glowing. Okay, not anymore. Sorry, Bumblebee guy. Just thought it was funny that your legs were so white. As you can see, in reality, my avatar does not reflect what I truly look like because I'm glowing myself in reality. And my avatar, you can't see under the helmet, has hair on top, has a nice mohawk, so I figured, why not? I can't have hair in real life. Might as well have hair in my Zwift life. Oh my gosh. I feel like today's ride, I really haven't been paying attention to my performance, but I feel like every time I look up, my watts are decent. And so I would suspect I've put in a better effort today than normal. Now, why is that the case? Well, one, I believe I'm probably getting into a little better shape. But two, my temperature in my riding room today was around 58 degrees Fahrenheit. And a couple degrees colder than normal. And so I feel like that helps me from overheating. And I keep promising that I'm going to put a fan on the front of me eventually, but I haven't done that yet. So I think that's got a little bit to do with my performance. But also the fact that I'm obviously getting into better shape as we ride on throughout the week, throughout the weeks, months. And I can tell you guys, man, I've been saying this since day one, but I am so appreciative of everybody that joins in to watch and to give me their 2 cents, thumbs up, anything, because it gives me more purpose than just doing this for myself. I don't know why for me that matters. I'm assuming there's some level of narcissism where, you know, I need this validation of some sort, but nevertheless I appreciate you guys being here, because I don't know that I could wake up and do this as I've committed to if I wasn't being held accountable by those of you that are watching. And even you guys on Facebook. One nice thing about Facebook is I can see who's on and so even if they don't say anything, I at least know they've stopped in to check in on me. I know a lot of the people are holding off until Wednesdays just to see I think some of them are hoping for a train wreck, and others are hoping that I succeed. But regardless of which camp you're in, it helps me get up and be 100% transparent. Even if, like last week, I have to wake up an hour earlier and get on the bike and try to lose that last couple of pounds before I officially weigh myself in before 7 a.m., which is in some respect cheating to my original plan. However, it really doesn't matter. The goal is 244 by January 2020, and the more immediate goals that I have is I set a goal to be 299 by this Wednesday, so 2 days from now, which I'm afraid I probably screwed up this weekend, but we'll see. And then to be down to 270 pounds by June 3rd is my next short-term goal. And what I figured out was that I needed to set these shorter goals because unlike 2012, I know what I'm capable of now, and I think that gives me a mental excuse not to work as hard as I could, because I know when it's time to just finish up the race, I can always just sprint to the end. And that's long term, it's not the idea here. And so I'm setting shorter goals, so that forces me to work hard throughout the entire race. And the race is to 244, and I hope I get below that, man. I hope I crush that. I hope my ego gets out of here, or if it doesn't, that I put on some other different internal or subconscious goals that make riding and all of that my new obsession. Now I will be going back to the gym. I didn't tell anybody this, but end of April I plan on going back to the gym, even though I can't lift heavy. There is a Planet Fitness that is going to be opening here in my hometown, and so to create a little bit more diversity into what I'm doing and not go out and buy more equipment for my house, I'm going to go ahead and just join the $10 a month Planet Fitness and start throwing some rowing and some treadmill work and probably an elliptical trainer for interval training. I'm going to start throwing some of that work in. And, you know, it's just a math problem at that point for $10 a month to have 3 or 4 more pieces of equipment You can go figure out how much, you know, that would cost to buy, and you know, how many years it would take at $10 a month to get to, you know, to pay those things off. And remember, I can't just go buy the $100 Walmart, you know, elliptical trainer because of my size. I have to have something that's more commercial grade, because I will break it if I buy something that, you know, somebody that weighs maybe 120 pounds or less could use. Those things are fine for you. For me, at 300 pounds, and being an ex-power lifter, I have just destroyed those things very quickly. So it's not really an option for me, even though it might be for you. So instead of just having the excuse of, well, I really don't want to spend the extra $3,000 on equipment, instead for me, well, how tall am I? My driver's license says 5'11", but I know I've shrunk. I've been shrinking, so I'm 5'10", if you ask my doctor. But my ego makes me leave 5'11" on my driver's license, even though over the years I've shrunk, which is very common in my family, actually. Even my father went from 5'10", and now he's somewhere in the 5'8". So over time, we just seem to compress. So the answer, the unconvoluted answer, is 5'10", 300 pounds. But I'm a tall 5'10". But a lot of people get confused by my weight, because I am somewhat proportionate. So until I'm standing next to somebody else, it's hard to realize that I am as short as I am, or I weigh as much as I do, until you see me next to somebody that's half my weight, and you realize they could fit inside me. Now we're about ready to finish up the ride, guys. We're just right around 3 minutes left. So again, I appreciate everybody being here. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. What you do for me is you help me be accountable to myself. I know that waking up and you're going to be there. And as goofy as that may sound, man, it helps me tremendously to know that you guys are going to be there with me. There's a group of people that on Twitch that are here most rides, and they've got some really good knowledge. I think they've got their own experience. So if you're new, you can go ahead and start chatting with them, and they'll help you out. If you have any, diet or exercise questions, I can always chime in there, and I usually do. Whether you like what I have to say or not, that's okay. I will chime in. I'm kind of like that fat dietitian. A whole lot of knowledge without practicing it so much. For years I concentrate on other things. Most recently I went from, fat to fit. I'm going to use somebody else's thing. To being a power lifter. And in that powerlifting phase, getting injured, but still maintaining that high caloric diet, and then of course putting a lot of fat back on, and then I started losing some of the muscle. And so it's all part of the journey. Again, if you're new, the goal here is to get down to 244 pounds. I started off at 313 pounds, as you'll see on the ticker there. I'm giving myself until January of 2020 to get there, and I have some shorter term goals to help me along. And so You can check in every Wednesday and I'll do a weigh-in. And if you want, you can check in a few months, which is fine. Whatever works for you, just knowing that you guys are going to be there definitely helps me out. And there are some very knowledgeable people, so if you're on Twitch and you want to watch some of the other journeys or some of the other people out there, just click on their name and follow them, and make sure that you get the alerts of when they get on and ride. I've been trying to watch as many as I can if I'm not too busy during the day and I get an alert saying somebody's on. I try to jump on and watch now when I can. May not be able to be there very long, but I think it's important as a community to help each other and support each other. And you get to know each other a lot better by watching and listening to the story. And there's a lot of good knowledge, especially for people that are going to transition shortly to outside riding. There are some guys out there that have been through some very high level training. And so I think it's important for you guys to follow as many people as you can, because if you don't know how to do something, they'll help you. And of course, not just diet and exercise, but if you have some nerdism questions of how to stream, what equipment's being used, what settings. Of course, I fight the settings all the time. One thing that you have to realize when you go live is that you're going to have some issues that you have to deal with. And so if you have questions on how to fix anything, then just reach out to any one of the other members here of the Twitch community, or if you're on YouTube, or in my case also on Facebook, go ahead and reach out to them. Well, we hit the hour and I wasn't even paying attention, so I like to finish up with a bit of a push. So we'll see what we can do. I think I got quite a few kilometers in today, which is awesome. And also, if you were here a couple months ago, this kind of wattage would have crushed me. Woo! And it didn't do so today. So I am progressing. All right, guys, I appreciate you being here. We will see you Wednesday morning, unless we do an extra ride tomorrow, which I might do, because I'll probably weigh myself and not be happy. So we may do another bonus ride this tomorrow. We'll see. Anyways, thanks for watching. Everybody have a great day.